Down at the Kitty Cat Lounge in South Bend, Indiana, the dancers take it off. Everything down to the tattoos. But public nudity is against the law in Indiana, including in bars, even if not obscene. The dancers, who faced a year in jail and a $5,000 fine, say the law violates free speech. The state of Indiana says nude dancing is not protected by the First Amendment because it is not expression, that it communicates no idea, no specific message. After viewing this videotape exhibit, a federal appeals court disagreed and ruled Indiana's law was an indefensible threat to artistic freedom. Although several judges panned the performance, one wrote that it is surely expression in that it elicits a response from the patrons. Take it off. Another judge said Indiana could no more take the erotic edge off American culture than it could require museums to place fig leaves and braziers on their paintings and statues. Indiana has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to uphold the state's law, arguing nude dancing is not speech. An argument some First Amendment scholars claim has ominous implications for the arts.
Are we going to say that a Mozart sonata is unprotected by the First Amendment unless we can articulate in words what it is it tells us?
Yet even experts like Abrams say it is unlikely that nude dancing is what the framers of the Constitution were thinking about when they engraved the First Amendment into the Bill of Rights.
Well, I can't help to think that they would have laughed. I don't know what they had in mind about nudity.
But they might not be laughing about this case. The Supreme Court could use it for a broad pronouncement on the meaning of free speech as it decides the more narrow question: when dancers shed their clothes, do they shed their First Amendment rights as well?
Sharon sailed consistently in all sections with a first in the course racing, a third in freestyle, a second in the slalom and a fourth in the marathon. That was enough to secure the pentathlon and to be named the #1 female windsurfer in the world. Sharon's aim now is for a spot in the Australian Olympic team competing in Barcelona next year. In the men's division, Boorigle's Adam Quinn was equal first in the course racing with Sydney's Warren Williams, and the overall title went to Tony Phillips of Fiji, with Greg Hyde second and Dave Tonkin third.
The sight of a spider doesn't get most people's pulses racing. For some, it would actually get them running in the opposite direction. But Tibby Barbe can't get enough of them. He's well known in the Shoalhaven for his knowledge of spiders, including the funnel webs, and is called in when local people find their properties under spider attack.
I started probably about 86, 87, and I've been always collecting insects in my life, but spiders really fascinate me because they are really beautiful insects, really, in my point of view.
Adam Donovan and his wife don't share that feeling.
I found about 40 spiders. I found about 30 in 1 week, and then the others have just an odd one here, an odd one there.
Tibby helped Adam to collect the offending spiders, which are now display items. This man of spiders says it's the wandering male, isn't it always, that causes all the problems.
The male travels around a fair bit looking for food, and he just lives under leaf litter, and he doesn't make a burrow himself. And he's the one that usually you come across in your house, because in laundries and shoes where there's moisture, when the dawn comes, like all night he walks around, and then dawn he goes somewhere where it's dark.
Wherever spiders get to, Tibby is on their trail, and he usually gets his arachnid. For once, 2 legs seem to be better than 8.
The alarm was raised at midday yesterday when National Parks and Wildlife workers alerted police the small fire they'd been called to in the park's north was out of control. From there, fanned by strong northeasterly winds, the blaze began to bear down on the Broadwater, packed with hundreds of holidaying families. Finally, by 6 o'clock, and with more than 70 firefighters unable to slow its progress, the decision was made to evacuate.
Some people disappeared into the background, and we
We had to leave the dinner here.
we took some of it with us. Yeah, it was just pretty rushed. We had to go.
Who told you to evacuate?
Who was it?
Police.
Police, I suppose. Yeah, just ran up and down the road, telling everyone to get out.
Caravans, tents and camping grounds were left deserted as families bundled into cars and boats and headed for safety, many being forced to spend the night under the stars. Was it hard to leave everything behind?
Yes, very hard, yeah.
These 4 men returned this afternoon to their grounds to gather what they could, but no equipment at any of the evacuated areas was harmed. Evacuations continued today, the Westpac rescue helicopter lifting 12 stranded campers out of Tiggerabit. By that stage, fire crews from Karua, Bulladila and Foster had joined the fighting. But late afternoon there was a lucky break for firefighters in the form of a wind change. It allowed them to begin backburning operations along the Hawk's Nest Seals Rocks Road and prevent the blaze spreading any further toward the coastline. Adding to firefighters' frustration, belief the blaze was deliberately lit, as were 2 smaller outbreaks in the park earlier this week. Tonight the fire continues to burn but has been brought under control and is no longer a threat to life or property.
Police Sergeant Brian Carston says he's receiving regular complaints by beachgoers of nudity and deviant behaviour on Newcastle's beaches. He says many sun worshippers are under the mistaken belief that they're on a nude beach, but there are no officially designated nude bathing areas in either Newcastle or Lake Macquarie. A notable exception is Port Stephens Shire, where Samurai Beach has been set aside for nature lovers for several years now. Over time, the secluded Susan Gilmore Beach in Newcastle has gained a reputation as a nude bathing area, although it has no council sanction. Today, that beach was populated by modestly attired beachgoers and their families. Police say they're not so concerned by nude bathing as they are by the more bizarre people they tend to attract.
Males are going there, stripping off and running out in front of the naked sunbathers and masturbating in front of them. Well, any person at all doesn't like that sort of thing going on, and they're really the people we're trying to catch.
Police say nude bathers should exercise their political clout to get a beach of their own.
Once they get their private beach designated, well then we'll try and keep out the deviants that come there and perv on them.
A spokesman for Newcastle City Council said nude beaches were not on the agenda, however they would be considered if the public made strong enough requests.
Australian ski racing champion Jason Campbell gave a taste of what is to come on the 26th and 27th of January. The first ski racing event on Newcastle Harbour, but that's just one of a series of high thrills for the regatta in 1991.
We're offering them a full water program. The program now is full. We can't actually fit anything else on the water on the weekend.
On Queen's Wharf today, details were released on more than 20 events. Craft from both the Australian and New Zealand navies will be guarding the high seas, 16-footer sailboats will be racing, and vessels of every type on display in the boat show. Formula One power boat racing returns to the harbour after an exhilarating debut last year, boats topping speeds of 200 kilometres per hour. As with tradition, the program will end with a grand parade on Sunday featuring all the vessels of the regatta.
14-year-old Trinity Jane Parker of Tanambit was placed in a cell at Maitland Police Station on Sunday morning. It's believed she was intoxicated at the time. Police say it's not unusual to place a young offender in a cell until they're collected by parents or are in a suitable condition to enter a welfare centre. But on Sunday morning, Trinity was found hanging from a cell bar by a piece of her clothing. Police managed to revive her and take her to Maitland Hospital, where she was quickly transferred to the intensive care wing of Royal Newcastle Hospital. She died at about 2 p.m. yesterday. Already, police were conducting inquiries of their own into the apparent suicide attempt. The girl's death is the subject of 3 inquiries, the first by a senior police officer from a separate station, the second by the State Police Internal Affairs Branch, and the third by State Coroner Kevin Waller. Eventually all reports will wind up on his desk, and at this stage Mr Waller says he's releasing no details to the public. It's understood there are serious concerns in the coroner's department that publicity surrounding Trinity's death may spark a spate of copycat suicide attempts. Mr Waller has instructed police to make no public statements on the matter until his inquiry is concluded.
It's the pride and joy of Newcastle man Jack Duggan. The boat was built about 100 years ago by the town's boat builders at Dempsey Island, now part of Kooragang. Jack laid eyes on it as a rotting wreck. Over the past 3 years he's replaced most of the planks and the seats. He remembers when the boats were used to carry supplies to the square-rigged ships in Newcastle Harbour, their oarsmen often racing to secure orders. The boats were also used to tow heavy mooring lines from the ships, and their slender hulls made them a feature at racing regattas as well.
She meant a lot to me because I really grew up amongst them in the Hunter River, and they seemed to vanish all of a sudden. Other boats took over, more modern jobs, and I had one thing in mind, was to find one, recondition it and bring it right up to its natural state, in which I've done, and I hope to get quite a bit of pleasure out of it yet.
Plans for the development went public last weekend when Newcastle City Council placed an environmental impact study on public exhibition. It outlines the expansion and update of a small operation already running on Kooragang. That mill has been producing wood chip for 6 years, but according to Rob Winston of Council's planning department, its age and equipment have begun to cause problems.
Mostly to do with noise and operations. It hasn't been a major issue with us, but it is something that does need to be made better.
At this stage, there's been no response at all to the study, and according to Alan Wells of Envirosciences, who prepared it, it's unlikely there will be any reason for objections. He's described the development as environmentally sound, saying it will simply use sawmill waste, forest thinnings and logging offcuts normally left on the forest floor. 25,000 tonnes of chips a year will be exported to Japan, 6,000 will be kept for domestic market. Mr Wells said the products sold to Japan are expected to fetch more than $1.25 million a year. The study remains on display for the remainder of the month, then the project will go before Council for decision.
The Saver is a double-moulded, foam-filled fiberglass dinghy currently being built by Hyde's boat builders at Saltash. It comes in a 2 or 5 person version and costs upwards of $2,000. The dinghies provide a versatile alternative to more expensive inflatable life rafts and meet the latest MSB regulations for offshore fishing and cruise boats.
What they're after is a boat that got the people out of the water instead of the old style raft, and stopping chances of hypothermia and shark attack.
Reg Hyde is the 5th generation of a Port Stephens boat building family and now sees export potential in the Saver. The boats have watertight storage tanks, lock-in oars, a baler and reflective tabs which show up at night. A mast and canopy are optional extras.
So you can punch holes in them and they'll still float, so they're totally unsinkable.
The Saver's buoyancy was put to the test. Fully swamped and with 10 adults on board, the boat showed remarkable stability. As a life raft, it can float 20 people. Reg was keen to prove the point with the help of some friends. The Saver will be on display at the Newcastle Boat Show later this month.
The old Newcastle RSL club on King Street was one of the first to be formed after the Great War, but structural damage caused by the earthquake was too severe to save the turn-of-the-century building. The RSL moved out to a temporary location in the Hunter Chambers on Scott Street, always planning to rebuild a new clubhouse on the old site. But Club Secretary Phil Winnie says trading is so strong at the new location, they've decided to stay put. The RSL has bought the once temporary Hunter Chambers site for about $500,000, with future plans to expand into vacant office space on the first floor. The deserted site of the old RSL club could now become a multi-million-dollar office block with a ground-level shopping arcade.
At this stage it will be I would think, a complex of shops on the ground floor with office space on the first and second. Of course that depends on any offers and that we have from various people.
Mr Winnie says a number of businesses have already approached the club looking for a place in the new building, but he says construction depends on the club's profitability in the Hunter Chambers. He believes that could improve if the railway line to the Newcastle station is removed, giving the club a clear harbour frontage. In the meantime, the RSL is one of the very few businesses to benefit from the earthquake.
It's a shame to see the old building go, but I suppose something good comes out of everything like that, and we've been lucky enough to be on the right side of the ledger, I suppose. One of the very few businesses in town, I suppose, has a benefit out of it.
"100 kilometres is a daunting ride for most, but Ray Williams was only too happy to jump in the saddle at first light for a 5-hour jaunt around his Stockton home. It's an unusual way to celebrate any birthday, let alone an 86th, but Ray isn't the type to take old age lying down. A lifelong athlete, Ray chose the ride to highlight his personal campaign for geriatric health. He believes many other elderly people can and should be living more active lives. The secret, he says, is plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables and, of course, regular exercise. But after completing the ride, Ray put aside his strict diet code for just a while to enjoy a slice of birthday cake prepared by wife Minnie, while family and friends wished him many happy and healthy years to come.
It was the first time the halls of the new John Hunter echoed to the footsteps of patients. Dennis Tate and Marvin Mendonça were admitted to Ward 3E, where a bevy of enthusiastic staff, all dressed in the hospital's designer uniforms, were eager to explain the ward's high-tech features.
There's also a light switch that turns your reading light on and off. And there's two-way communication with the nurses station. So if you buzz...
The hospital is operating for only elective surgery until the end of the month, when low-risk obstetric patients will be accepted. Casualty will not open until March the 6th. Today, in one of the 10 operating suites, surgical staff were carrying out full dress rehearsals with stand-in patients in a bid to familiarise themselves with the new equipment.
There are mock patients being brought up from the wards, and every single step of the procedures is being tested without actually putting the patient to sleep. Here, everybody's new and the layout's new. So it's a matter of practicing so that it becomes second nature.
From Professor Robert Burton, Chairman of Surgery, the facility got a big thumbs up.
I think we'll find that the surgery here will be excellent and that surgeons, anaesthetists and even the patients will enjoy their operations in the John Hunter Hospital.
But while it may only be dress rehearsals today, tomorrow it will become deadly serious when the first patient goes under the surgeon's knife here in these operating theatres at 9 a.m. and the first operation, a tonsillectomy. The dispute hinges on this 46-tonne continuous miner which the Commission wants to move to its Newstand mine in Lake Macquarie. Yesterday, 4 mine electricians were stood down but were later reinstated for refusing to power the miner ready for transport. It was feared another attempt to move the machinery by truck today would result in more sackings, leading to a mass walkout by Elcom's 3,000 miners and up to 4,000 of their Hunter colleagues. This afternoon, confrontation was avoided when the truck driver agreed not to cross the picket line, a decision which leaves Elcom several $1,000s out of pocket. The miners say the $1.5 million item of equipment is necessary to work the Barrett seam, which they believe would safeguard their jobs for another 25 years. They are angry that a joint coal board offer of $100,000 to investigate operations in the seam was turned down.
We feel that by protecting that machinery on the basis of what we feel is what it should be utilised for, and that is the development of the Barrett seam, that ensures a position where the mine, instead of being lasting 6 years, has got about 25 years life.
He says this bin and conveyor belt into the Barrett seam cost $31 million to install, but now management says mining the seam is not viable.
We tried to mine the Barrett seam for over a period of 2 years, spent many millions of dollars on it, and were not successful. At this stage the mine is for sale and we don't consider it appropriate to continue that expenditure.
The 180 Liddell State miners also want to know why the lease is not being sold in its entirety, but only as the existing mine site with a maximum of 6 years remaining coal reserves. They are also angry that they're not being offered voluntary redundancy, unlike miners at other Elcom mines which were placed on the market last month. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
The search resumed in earnest this morning with dozens of SES volunteers joining police, preparing to go from house to house throughout the neighbourhood.
Now she's very frail, she's only 5 foot tall, she walks with a bit of a stoop to the left.
The missing woman, Edith Woods, is 76 years old and suffers from advanced Alzheimer's disease. She was wearing a blue dress with a pink slip when she disappeared from the Amaroo Lodge nursing home at about 3:30 p.m. yesterday. Staff began looking for her. By nightfall, the operation had expanded with the help of police and volunteers. Late today, searchers still believed the elderly woman was nearby.
It's unlikely that she's likely to have gone very far.
Acting on public information, searchers concentrated on land near the Charlestown swimming pool and the local school without success. Nevertheless, police were still hopeful she hadn't come to any harm.
The prospects of finding her well, that's very good for us. However, if we get another burst of hot weather, that of course is going to lessen our chances of finding her safe and well.